thanks for stopping by, Brian for Liberty. I really appreciate you coming by. If you could, please take a second and hit that subscribe button. And if you really do like the content, please take an additional second and share it. Turn on the notifications because we're going to be trying to get videos out much quicker, and I don't want you to miss anything. Today we're going to be having a little bit of fun to start off with, and then we're going to move into our impending economic doom. And I know in today's time we have had plenty of doom and gloom, and you guys are probably all getting a little tired of it. But hey, when you're done here, go take a look at SGN with John Krasinski, and it'll bring your spirits right back up. But let me get started with this. I bet you all remember this clip from the mayor of Chicago, Miss Lori Lightfoot.
We will shut you down. We will cite you. And if we need to, we will arrest you, and we will take you to jail.
And I understand we're all dealing with this quarantine stuff, and it's complicated, and what's open, what's closed, what can you do, what can't you do. So we were able to get a clip of the quarantine czar in Chicago to get us some clarification on exactly what these ever-changing rules are really going to look like.
You're stealing, right to jail. You're playing music too loud, right to jail, right away. You're driving too fast, jail. Slow, jail. You're charging too high prices for sweaters, glasses. You right to jail. You undercook fish, believe it or not, jail. You overcook chicken, also jail. Undercook, overcook. You make an appointment with the dentist and you don't show up, believe it or not, jail.
And I hope that helps and brings some clarification as to what is and what isn't okay. Okay, so let's take a look here first we're going to look at President Trump talking about what he sees in the next economic stimulus, or what he'd like to see in the next economic stimulus, followed by Mr. Kulinski's commentary on payroll taxes.
Do is a payroll tax cut. That seems to bother the Democrats. One thing with a payroll tax cut, though, it's over a little bit longer period of time. But a payroll tax cut is something that some people that are very smart, I'm one of those people that like it. The thing they'd like to see is a capital gains tax cut.
These ideas are insane. And they're more of a Trojan horse. This is just to help the rich and screw regular people. They want the payroll tax cut, the whole purpose of that is to gut entitlements.
And what's very important here, as you watch that clip, what's important is that regular people pay payroll taxes. Everybody who still has a job would see an immediate increase in their paycheck. And also, the payroll taxes are essentially a tax businesses pay on employee salaries. So if you don't understand what the payroll tax is, it essentially funds Social Security. And it's a tax that's split between you and your employer. So your employer pays a payroll tax, and then you pay a payroll tax. So immediately, people who still have jobs would see an increase in their paychecks. Second, because it's based on the salaries that companies are paying, it actually, eliminating the payroll tax makes it cheaper to give raises and to hire people and to maintain employment. It's essentially a tax on the salaries that companies pay. So it does have a benefit to the working class. To say this is just a tax for rich people is a little ridiculous. But he is right when he says it's that it'll gut entitlement. But that's only true if you believe that our government has any level of monetary restraint, which I think we could both look at and say that's absolutely not the case anymore. We are going to print money as if it has no consequences. Neither the Republicans or the Democrats have any level of fiscal or monetary responsibility anymore. And they'll just print the money and continue to tax everyone through inflation. So the idea that it's going to hurt the entitlement programs in the long term is, it's accurate, but not in the way he thinks it is. It's going to make those social security checks worth a lot less because of the inflationary impact of printing all this money. But the U.S. isn't going to default on its social security debt. That's a mandatory expenditure. They'll just print the money to cover the difference. So the idea that, like I said, we're going to pay our mandatory expenses. We're just going to inflate the money away, inflate away the debt. So it is going to hurt entitlement, but not in the way that he thinks it is. But here, this might be my favorite clip.
Capital gains tax cut, that's even more insane. Guys, do you know what the capital gains tax is? That's when you invest in the stock market and, some companies pay dividends. So, you get a check every month or so, depending on, how the company does. So capital gains tax is the income that you make from investments. So a guy like Mitt Romney, I remember this from 2012. This is a great example when he was running for president. He made, I think it was like $14 million just from investments. just from the money he had in the marketplace.
Now, let's dive in. And this is what there's nothing more fun than finding somebody who's being incredibly arrogant and wrong at the exact same time. And I love it because first thing we have to do is understand what capital gains tax are. Capital gains taxes are not taxes on dividends. Capital gains taxes are taxes on the sale of non-inventory assets. So what does that mean? It simply means that I buy a stock, it goes up in value, and I sell it, and then I pay capital gains tax on the difference. Or, and this is more important, I am a real estate investor. I buy a property, I rehab said property, and then I sell property for a profit. So let's look at the capital gains tax and how that could, eliminating the capital gains tax could actually benefit the regular person. So I know that most regular people, most wage earners are not out there flipping stocks and speculating in the stock market. They're long-term investors. And so eliminating that gains tax doesn't help them. But if I'm a real estate investor, if you've ever attempted to rehab a property, just take a quick look at all the people you have to hire. You're thinking electricians, painters, drywallers, a plumber, landscapers. The purchase and rehabilitation of a property is an incredibly economically beneficial thing for regular workers, for blue-collar workers. They create tons of jobs. The housing market in general is a huge jobs creator, and rehabbing properties is a huge part of that. Now, just keep in mind that we want real estate investors to be able to do this, and if you reduce the reward for the risk that they're taking, then you're going to have less people taking that risk. That's how it works. That's just simple economics. If you increase the amount of reward for that activity, you'll get more of that activity. So I want people buying houses. I want people hiring blue-collar workers to rehab those houses so that investor can turn around and make a profit. I want his reward to be high enough to incentivize him to go in and invest in those properties. This is typical progressive, we all don't live in the same economy attitude that this benefits rich people, and anything that benefits rich people cannot simultaneously benefit people in the working class. That's a false way to view the economy. Certainly through the financialization of our economy, certainly through the fact that we are on a fiat currency is definitely something that benefits the uber wealthy over the working class, but we never touch on that in anything that he has to say. He's simply looking at this capital gains tax as something that only benefits rich people, and that's absolutely false. And he doesn't really even know how capital gains taxes work, so he probably should not be commenting on it in the first place. But what we've really got to talk about is the real problem facing the country. And so I want you to take a quick look at this chart and just know that we have added $3 trillion in debt in just a year. Now, you could blame the healthcare crisis or the health crisis that we're going through right now. And that would only be partially true. We were going to add $1 trillion in debt no matter what. That was already in the budget. So it's not like Trump and the Republicans are addressing spending or trying to be fiscally responsible in any way before coronavirus, COVID-19 reared its ugly head. But right now, it's pretty clear that there's no longer any kind of party that represents fiscal restraint. Nobody's really even paying lip service. I think Trump said something a couple of weeks ago about addressing the deficit when he gets reelected or whatever the case may be. It doesn't even matter. It's irrelevant. He's not going to address it. Remember, this is the president who said that he'd get rid of the debt in 4 years and has done nothing but add to it. So, but what we're really looking at here, when you talk about adding $3 trillion in a year, you're talking about late stage capitalism, end stage capitalism, however you want to describe it. It's essentially the coming end of our financial system, the way that we recognize it, the way that we see it today. And if that sounds too apocalyptic to you, I am sorry. But the reason you feel that way is because we've become comfortable enough and wealthy enough and shielded by our massive military and living beyond our means as the world reserve currency that the idea that the world around you is built on a crumbling foundation is absolutely unfathomable. History tells us how this plays out. A major collapse in currency value, unrest, and balkanization, which is essentially the splintering of the nation into smaller pieces. That's what I see coming. This is what happens. This historically is what happens over and over again when you have a currency that is not backed by any kind of asset, where you have debasement of your currency and you are running a massive military empire and you can't afford to do it anymore. This is what happens. So read it, look at your history books. It'll tell you exactly exactly where we're headed, but I know that for many of you, the idea of this is absolutely inconceivable.
Inconceivable! You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
And I'm going to tell you that not only is it conceivable, it's unavoidable. And the reason for that is because the voters won't accept anything different. You see, on the right, there can be no increase in revenues. We're not going to tolerate tax increases. All we want is tax cuts. I love tax cuts, but the Republicans don't cut taxes. They defer taxes because they reduce taxes without reducing spending, which means that they're just saying you're going to pay these taxes down the road instead of today. I'm going to buy your votes today, and I'm going to send the bill to your kids. And as far as the Democrats are concerned, there could be absolutely no reduction in the size and scope of government. And when they try to raise taxes to pay for government, it's usually associated by new and more expensive, shiny government objects that are going to take up any additional revenue that they try to create without addressing the long-term deficits that we already have. Neither party wants to solve the problem. The ideologies have bankrupted the nation. And so far, based on our massive military might, our status as a world reserve currency, we've been largely shielded from the consequences. And that luxury is coming to an end as our government is going to lose the ability to print its way out of trouble. I'm going to go into this in greater detail on the podcast. If I don't get it up this evening, the podcast will be up tomorrow evening. I'm going to talk about a little bit of history of our deficits, how we went off the gold standard, fiat currencies in general, and how this has always played out throughout history. And unfortunately, the reality that we are probably not going to be able to escape that same fate. So I hope you'll check it out. You can find it on Spotify by searching Brian, the number 4 Liberty. And the bottom line is there's going to be a stimulus 4, there's going to be a stimulus 4.5, and on and on. And it's going to do very little to prevent the depression level economic collapse that we're all getting ready to experience. And it's going to leave the Federal Reserve and the Treasury essentially no choice but to create more money out of thin air. This is going to play out over the next several months. And most Americans will be so busy squabbling over which president is a bigger horse's ass that they won't even notice. Sorry I had to drop this little ray of sunshine on you today, but this is just it. These are the facts. This isn't an arguable, really. You can't add $3 trillion of debt in 1 year and expect any other outcome. So this is what we need to be gearing up for. This is what's coming. I'm sure there'll be plenty of distractions as the election season kicks into full gear. But at the end of the day, what I can tell you, what I promise you won't hear is massive reductions in government spending, massive reductions in our global military empire. The spending is not going to be addressed. It's going to be a conversation over tax cuts versus tax increases, with virtually no attention being paid to the fact that we are printing our way out of existence when it comes to our currency. So that's just where we are right now. This is what jumped out at me today as I scanned through YouTube and checked the different stories out. I'm going to keep trying to get a video out every day now that I'm back and I'm off the road. So please take a second and subscribe, hit that notification button so you can become aware of when the videos are coming out. And like I said, I'm going to check me out tomorrow evening on the podcast. Again, that's Brian, the number 4 Liberty on Spotify. And I'm going to get a podcast up here in the next day or so. So thank you all for coming by. And as always, we will see you next time.